Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rem and Sam podcast. We've hit the sports solstice part of the calendar. I think that's the correct term for it. The longest day of the sports calendar, the longest stretch of the sports calendar. When you get the sports equinox, you get all of the major sports having games all on the same day. When you get NFL, NBA, NHL, and MLB. But right now, this is nothing on base. We have baseball on in the background right now. Yankees, Mets. That's what we've been reduced to. The WNBA has gone on break. Their All-Star game just happened this weekend, and then they're going to have to obviously send the Olympic team in the middle of the season as we have the Olympics on the horizon. Make no mistake, we're very excited for the Olympics this weekend. Like we said, starting opening ceremonies are this Friday, correct? I always get confused about, is the start date the date for the games, or is it the opening ceremonies and getting the festivities underway? But they're making us do a sports cleanse before we get the Olympics thrown at us. Pause. Opening ceremonies, yeah, this Friday. Okay, Friday night in Paris. But who would have thought we would have missed the the WNBA this much? But we really need something to watch. But once the Olympics come back, or once the Olympics start on the 26th, then NFL is right around the corner as well too. The preseason games, the guys at work are like buzzing about the upcoming NFL preseason games. They're ready to go. The first game is next Thursday, August 1st. We got Bears Texans in the Hall of Fame game. But yeah, not much going on in the sports world, but it's okay because there's a mutiny going on in Washington, D.C. right now. People are turning on each other. People are getting replaced. It is what it is. Who would have thought the Rem and Sam podcast would have become your number one go-to source for political news? But like we said, there's nothing going on in the sports world, and Summer League just didn't quite hit the same this year. I know the draft class was not as hyped up as it has been in the past, but I didn't necessarily correlate that would mean, potentially Summer League might not be as entertaining as it is in the past. And it does kind of show the importance of, those younger guys in the Summer League, because there's obviously still, guys that have been around that had some really good performances. Scottie Pippen, believe had a triple double in the Summer League championship game, even though the Grizzlies ended up losing. And he just was putting up, I think he was first team all Summer League. Shout out Scottie Pippen Jr. But, probably playing with an extra chip on his shoulder with all the off court stuff. But, he put up really good numbers. Jalen Wilson, Summer League MVP, was really scoring the ball and shooting the ball at an efficient rate. But even with those guys, again, performing really well, still not quite the same buzz. Gigi Jackson playing well. All these guys in the Grizzlies playing well is why the Grizzlies almost ended up winning. And, you get Jaime Jaquez and Pajemski pulling up like they're, Shane Gillis at an open mic, just crushing Summer League like it's looking super easy as well, too. And it's not like those guys are just playing in Summer League after having played a full NBA season, which is obviously a super huge advantage. I mean, we saw Brandon Miller also looked super good in this Summer League as well, too. But I thought it was super funny for Pajemski and Jaquez. I guess Brandon Miller as well was also on the Team USA select team in Vegas practicing against Team USA. So they literally went from the season to, and I guess even Jaquez on the Heat were out in the playoffs, pretty early. And the Warriors and the Hornets didn't end up making it. So they've had time to rest up before the Team USA camps. And then they get that experience playing against the Olympic guys. And then you just throw them in Summer League. So I'm not surprised. I think Pajemski and Jaquez were both all Summer League team guys as well, too, which, I mean, both those guys were also, again, playing in as rookies last year, but both of those guys, all rookie players. I want to say first team all rookie players, but I think Pajemski might have been a second team all rookie last year. But the all rookie teams for this season. Oh yeah, Reed Shepherd, Jalen Wilson, Scottie Pippen Jr., and Jordan Miller as the number 5. Or no, sorry, Khalil Ware. Okay, so okay, here we go. We've got the names. We've got Khalil Ware, Donovan Clingan, Scottie Pippen Jr., Jalen Wilson, and then Reed Shepherd. Oh, and I guess Jordan Miller won Summer League MVP. Oh, no, scrap that. IT, we might have to cut all this out. This was somebody's picks, own personal picks for the Summer League team. Shout out CBS Sports. I'm sure it's well informed, but it's not what ended up actually happening. Here we go. First team all Summer League this year. And this was last year. IT, we might actually be cutting all of this out. I don't know why we have a hard time pulling up this article. Jalen Wilson, MVP. Gigi Jackson, Jordan Miller, Scottie Pippen Jr., Reed Shepherd, and Khalil Ware was on the first team. So, wow, the MVP of Summer League is not on first team all Summer League. Do we need to call Sam and do an emergency podcast and talk about that real quick? I'm not sure. But second team all Summer League. Bub Carrington, shout out our guy for the Wizards. You know, we had a lot of Bub Carrington stock. Okay, so Jalen Wilson was on second team all Summer League, but still somehow the Summer League MVP, along with Hawkes and Jarris Walker. I think Podziemski, I'm assuming it's just games played, or they just didn't want to put all of the second team guys. You know, same with Brandon Miller, who probably, did they mean to vote for Brandon Miller, and that's how Jordan Miller ended up on? I'm not sure. But Khalil Ware, put him in the top 4 NBA players of all time. And we're back. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, our Wi-Fi cut out for a second. But like we were saying, shout out to the Summer League guys. Well, I guess we weren't saying shout out to the Summer League. We were saying it wasn't as good as usual, but it still did manage to log heavy minutes on the TV in the background throughout the course. But like we were saying, going on in DC right now, some crazy news, like not breaking news at this point, because we've got a lot of developments, you know, since this initial story. But Joe Biden has dropped out of the presidential race. The man is dropped out of the race. I don't know. Is he even still the president at this point anymore? There was rumors. People at work were like, is Joe Biden on hospice? Is Joe Biden dead? Apparently, Joe Biden is okay, but I don't know. You know, we could we could talk about how long potentially Joe Biden has been responsible for what. But, you know, at this point, he's not the president anymore. They've already, and I guess, you know, it's not as uncommon for a president to, obviously the point in the race at which he's doing it is uncommon, but a president not returning for another term is not a new thing. But it is a little like firing the coach, like you know, the news leaks out that the coach is you're gonna part ways with the coach at the end of the season, or the general manager. There's still like a couple of weeks left to go. But again, it's like, we have heard of that thing happening. So it's not like all things are going to go bad just because of that. Things are going to go bad because of other things. But outside of that, Joe Biden is no longer going to be on the ballot for this upcoming election. And like we said, we've gotten some developments since then. As we all kind of expected, you know, Kamala Harris stepped up to the plate immediately, or as, you know, as duty calls for Kamala Harris. It was only the right thing for her to do when her country needs her, is to put her hat in the ring as a presidential candidate. But also, if I was reading the headlines correctly, just if I was hitting it with the Kim K and just skimming through the news quickly, I believe she got like a pretty big fundraising day as well too. So I know there's still a chance for another potential, you know, Democratic candidate to throw their hat in the ring, or at the convention if they want to do some kind of, or I guess, you know, like they're saying they want to do some kind of open convention thing. I guess I don't know if that's still on the table either, with the amount of money that has gone to the Harris campaign recently. But I imagine that that's got to be some of the bigger donors as well too. So it's probably a little bit just harder from a money standpoint for another candidate to get in, as well as, just trying to, and I think, a lot of the delegates also went to her as well too, where she has at this point enough delegates to get the presidency, just needs to be confirmed at the DNC. Again, if another guy were to throw their hat in the ring in there, it just, at this point, that's the option. But if there is another hat, who knows if states would move their delegates over there. But at this point, it does seem like Kamala Harris is a lock to be the Democratic candidate. But, Joe Biden, for what you want to say about the man's political career. And again, it's not just the presidency, it is a whole political career with Joe Biden. He does deserve, just a little bit of shout out just for the run that the man had, for the man just showing up every day. I was looking up at some of the Biden stats for his tenure, because I know he was a senator for a long time, but then you also, he's a 2-term vice president with Obama, and then does a 4-year, maybe not 4-year, 2.5 year term as the president of the United States. But just in terms of senators, when he left office, he was, and I think still is, the 19th longest serving senator. So top 20 serving senator of all time. Now, if you go senator in House for just, serving in those spots, he moves down to 85th on the list. Again, if you throw the House in there, but that's, again, just counting his senator term. So if you throw the vice presidency and then the presidency back on there and just go, longest serving politicians, are, Biden top 15, 12th longest serving politician in the US, at least in the numbers that IT could dig up. So was it starting to show a little bit at the end, and was that the problem? Maybe, but definitely had quite the run. I don't know what the sports comp for him is, because it might be easier to do like a quarterback comp because instead of like an NBA comp, because there's a lot of quarterbacks that is empty stats the right term to use with Biden? I don't know. I'm not the one that's all super locked in on what the Biden policies are, but I know he wasn't batting 100% with the bills that the man was passing. That's for sure. But, again, like we're saying, had the run. So definitely, put up the stats, was able to do some stuff, able to, eventually get the presidency as well too, which is, no small accomplishment. Is he like a Matt Ryan, Joe Biden, Matt Ryan type comp? Because again, if you go, because like we were talking about with Sam last week, there's not like a NBA guy at the top of the all-time scoring list, where in the quarterback you can maybe just turn this on let's this on Matt Ryan in the Joe Biden pod. But I don't know why Matt Ryan needs to be catching strays here, but where you look at some guys' numbers and go, okay, maybe I wouldn't necessarily put him at this spot in his all-time ranking of where he's going to be at from like a passing yardage standpoint. But that guy doesn't really exist from a scoring total standpoint in the NBA. And, even like assists and rebounds, you start getting to like Stockton and Isaiah Thomas. I mean, Isaiah Thomas is like a top 25, top 30 guy of all time. I mean, he has to be at this point. I know the, new generation, you got to update the list, but I mean, come on, Isaiah Thomas still got to be super high up there. But, Stafford got a Super Bowl ring when he went to the Rams. So did Biden ever get the did he ever get the championship equivalent of a politician? Because I feel like, presidency, is that a ring, or is that more, more like an MVP type of thing? And then there's maybe a thing or two you have to do as a president. Because, yeah, I feel like, within the president, it's like, yeah, because I feel like the MVP is fair because like within the MVPs, well, how do you separate them? A lot of times it is with those Super Bowl rings, and that is for, or not just Super Bowl, that's championship rings. That goes for all sports. And I know, MVP is not necessarily the right term for every sport either. Shout out Sam in Soccer Corner. We've got the Ballon d'Or for soccer. Is the baseball's got MVPs, right? I know they've got Golden Gloves and other stuff as well too. Hockey's the one with the weird trophy name. I don't remember what it's called, but they don't have an act. Their trophy's not called like the MVP trophy. It's named after some legendary guy. And I guess the NBA one is now too, but it's what, the Michael Jordan MVP trophy. So MVP is still in there. But yeah, because like a guy like Lincoln, you would say like Lincoln winning the Civil War is probably is like a Super Bowl ring versus, just making the presidency. Did Biden have, and, not very many presidents have had that kind of level of Super Bowl rings. We're talking about, a Tom Brady, Joe Montana level president when we're talking about a guy like Abe Lincoln. But, same with George Washington. I know the Revolutionary War was pre-presidency, but it kind of goes to the whole thing with Washington. Same with Jefferson. And Jefferson, there's a whole slave thing with Jefferson. We got to dock Jefferson some points for some of the off-court behavior as well, too. But, the Declaration of Independence, also pre-presidency. So I guess if we're counting the Biden political career, yeah, we're counting all these political careers. And I guess, yeah, if we're saying the MVP, the presidency is the MVP of a political career, then yeah, I guess the Declaration of Independence he's not really a role player on that team though, because he penned the Declaration, but we're getting a little sidetracked with the comps. But like we're saying, we make no mistake, we are docking Jefferson for some of the off-court behaviors, as well as a lot of the most of the founding fathers and most of the people for most of American history. But the show goes on with the presidency. But I guess Biden, Biden has his, a couple of his off the court things, but yeah, make no mistake, a lot of Biden stuff was probably policy related more so than it was behavioral really related. And maybe if it was Biden, maybe it wasn't necessarily Joe, if you know what we're saying. But anyways, like we're saying, shout out to the run that Joe Biden had. And I was looking at some of the other longest serving guys too. Like we were saying, we were looking at this list, and Delaware was sneaky. A lot of guys holding their spots as senators from Delaware. So I don't know if we need to go see what's going on with there. They're close to Jersey as well too. So Jersey, the mob. You think maybe Jersey would be the one that would have some sketchy influence, but maybe it's working its way over into Delaware. But like we were saying, seems pretty locked in at this point that Kamala Harris is going to be the presidential nomination for the Democratic Party. But there still is the vice president spot open. And I know initially when Biden announced he was stepping down, there was some initial dialogue about who is going, if another person was going to throw their hat in the ring, who would that be? And what would be the strategic moves for doing it, setting themselves up in the future? And, I think most of this and most of the moves that are happening at this point right now are the Democrats and, them setting themselves up for the future at this point, because again, like we were saying earlier as well, too, there is, Biden, like, if he stays in the race, he definitely is going to get the Democratic nomination, no problem whatsoever. But at this point, it seems like we have a general, a pretty general idea of where the election is going to end up heading. So while he's giving up the nomination, if the bigger picture goal is to win the presidency, ultimately he's not really giving up that much. So I don't know if we can consider if we can consider this like a tanking move, because I don't know if there's necessarily a number one draft pick for for either party if we're talking about building for the future for any of these guys to scoop up. But again, it does seem like we know where the election is headed at this point. So, you still, and it does still seem like they're trying to put together, they're not at least doing the Sam Hinkie where they're like, oh yeah, this is clearly about the future. Like there's still very much an emphasis on this 2024 election, but it just seems like at least on the internet anyways, the public opinion is pretty strong in one direction. But if you are setting them so, if you are trying to be conscious about the future, because you should be as well too, as if you should, because like we're saying, there's no number one picks. You should try to build a strong 2024 campaign, but every party should be looking forward for what they're doing in the future. And yeah, maybe having another presidential candidate in there and another person in the mix and getting that name in the spotlight is a good way to do it. But I do think that VP spot could be maybe more important for the future of, oh, this is a guy, if it's like a team, this is a guy we want, or, a girl, that this is a person that we want to build the party around, because I don't know if Kamala Harris is that person for the Democratic Party. But because, if they're in that secondary spot, they don't necessarily have the pressure of carrying the campaign and being the face of what seems like it's going to be the face of a losing campaign at this point. But you still at least are, like we're saying, in the spotlight. And if there's seems like there might be a presidential debate at some point down the road here between Harris and Trump, if there's like a vice presidential debate, you're still getting a young and upcoming candidate and a new fresh face out into the public in that way, again, without the pressures of being the lead guy. So make no mistake, we have been tasked with trying to help the DNC figure out who should be the vice president nomination for Kamala Harris, because like I'm saying, this is a very important spot, a very important position to try to fill. Pause. But this is not just, hey, 2024. This is potentially bigger than that, bigger than the future of the future of the party, the future of the country is on the line, and we want to help the DNC make the right move. So we've got a list of potential candidates that we're just going to work our way through and try to figure out who is the best fit to be running with Kamala Harris. And there is a lot of there's definitely some win now moves in here, make no mistake. But I think the first place to start is, and this is kind of always something I've thought about as well too, is like I think everybody's kind of in like what happens if everything falls apart and disaster thinking mode right now. But if it was like, okay, just complete structure, societal breakdown, there's just no government anymore, it just doesn't exist, communities are still going to form, people are still going to rally around certain individuals. And there's certain celebrities and certain people and politicians as well too, just certain people in the public eye. Like, who would those people be gravitating toward? Who has the biggest following right now? Who has the most people on their side? And make no mistake, that person is Taylor Swift. It just is what it is. She has the most fans. I think sometimes the because of the amount of fans and the amount of music that gets played, there's some fans of the music that maybe is like, hey, is Taylor Swift in the public eye a little bit too much? But again, I think it's mostly musical related stuff. But Taylor Swift is definitely the most popular person right now, I think, in America. So if we're just trying to sway, if we're just trying to get votes, trying to get people on our side, just trying to, does feel a little win nowish, but it is also a good future move as well too, because a very young candidate, unfortunately, maybe a little, I don't know if we have a Drake issue here, but maybe a little too young. Taylor Swift is only 34, and like the one qualification to be, president or vice president of the United States, you just got to be 35 and born in the U.S. But Taylor Swift is 34. She does turn 35 in December. So I don't know if it's like a voting thing where I think if you turn like 18 in the year that the voting happens, so if it's, in the end of November or December, you're still able to vote. So maybe if it's you turn 35 in the year that the election happens, you can get it. And maybe we can sneak Taylor Swift in. I don't know if there's going to be big article posts on Fox News about how the left is trying to, mess with the Constitution and change the rules to try to get Taylor Swift in as the vice president nomination. But like we're saying, if we want to win now move, if we want fans, but if we do also want to try to, set a young candidate up for the future, I think, Taylor Swift is definitely an obvious name to consider right off the bat. But another, hot name in music right now, maybe the hottest name in music, but easily the second. It's maybe a 1A, 1B combination between Taylor Swift and Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar. I know that, like we were saying, the DNC, I know we've been playing not like us in a lot of these meeting rooms, but would Kendrick Lamar potentially make a good vice president candidate? I honestly think, does he feel a little too presidential? Maybe Kendrick just needs to be fully in charge and just run everything himself. He's got just uniting all of LA right now. Got Pyru and Crips and Bloods and everybody just dancing on stage all together at the same time at pretty sure it was the Forum. But again, just united LA, the city. So can he take his talents to the big stage and potentially, help try to unite the USA? Put the U back in the USA, Kendrick. But I don't know if you want to steal that for a bar. But like we're saying, it does feel like maybe Kendrick would be a good VP, but he also feels like he is a little presidential himself as well too. Clears the age bar. He's said that very excitedly. He's very, like, I think he's like 37, 38 in that range, knocking on the door of 40, but clears the bar of 35. But also, brings up an interesting question about who would make better presidents. Would East Coast rappers or West Coast rappers make better presidents? And again, I know the West Coast is winning the game right now, and I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but if you just go through the names of guys, like for the West Coast, like we're saying, Kendrick could definitely throw his name in the ring right now, but Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, I mean, Vice President Snoop Dogg, a Harris dog ticket would be pretty sick. Or do we call it a Harris Snoop ticket? I don't know how we put it on the banner, but either way, a Snoop Dogg VP would be pretty sick. Ice Cube, Vice President Ice Cube, a businessman, a entrepreneur with the big three. I don't know if he wants to give up running a successful basketball enterprise to try to fix the country, but Ice Cube, I think, could make a successful VP as well too. What about Ice-T, a man with police experience on Law and Order? I think, like we're saying, all these West Coast guys, I think, could be successful in this role. But you go to the East Coast, Jay-Z, Vice President Jay-Z. I think if we could have Vice President Beyonce, I think we could lock it in. So, if we get a Vice President Jay-Z Beyonce combo, do we just need to switch it to a Jay-Z Beyonce ticket and maybe just do it that way? I don't know, but something about Vice President Jay-Z, I feel like the Snoop Dogg, maybe even Ice Cube would just be higher on my vice president board. Nas as well too. We love Nas on the Rem and Sam pod, but just Vice President Nas, again, I think he's just a couple spots behind Ice Cube, though. Maybe we still slide in Nas over Ice-T. A couple of East Coast guys that I do think would be sleeper VP candidates, though, if the DNC wants to take our suggestions. 50 Cent, I think, pretty high approval rating. Everybody loves 50 Cent. Or if we just want to, again, if we just want to put in another presidential candidate and skip the vice president spot, what if we just give RZA the presidential nomination and then we just have a whole Wu-Tang cabinet at that point? And then just Ghostface Killer, Method Man, Raekwon, we just the whole crew in DC. And I think we could really get some things turned around. And they would bring some real old school, fundamental things back to the game as well, too. And I'm not talking old school like Reagan and Kennedy or, again, Lincoln and Washington. I'm talking old school, like whatever kind of samurai type stuff they're into, but, mix that with some of the modern day financial and then the programs and all that stuff. And I think the Wu-Tang Clan cabinet with RZA could be a potentially interesting group as well, too. But I don't know if a Kendrick Kamala Harris does have a nice ring to it, but I think Kendrick has his sights set on something bigger than just VP. Pause. But if we're debating all-time greats as VP, maybe this is the best case that the LeBron people have for LeBron over MJ. Who is a better presidential candidate? Because I feel like, and it's close, I feel like MJ is at this point, maybe playing day MJ, maybe not so much, but maybe current day MJ, not so much either, too. But maybe, hopefully, MJ with a little more wisdom might be a little more inclined to be politically successful. But I think, LeBron, I might have to give the nod here too, if I wanted to nominate one of these guys to be the VP. Plus, didn't he endorse like Hillary Clinton? I guess, yeah, probably did tweet out something. But I mean, like, didn't he like speak at a convention or gave some kind of talk for Hillary Clinton? He was an opener for Hillary Clinton on the road at one point, and I'm pretty sure he's read the first page of several political books. So I would, again, if it's MJ versus LeBron, I think I would be more inclined to go with LeBron. But if we're talking about LeBron with some of the names on this list, Wu-Tang and RZA, I was okay with RZA bringing the Wu-Tang Clan in and bringing his friends in to run things. But if LeBron's going to bring in the Clutch Sports guys and it's just going to be a Clutch Sports cabinet, maybe we look for another option. And not only is he bringing in his hometown friends, there's like a nepotism thing with LeBron too. Like, do we have to bring in Bronny as the director of what was Ben Carson's job in the Trump cabinet? Can we give that to Bronny? Like, do we have to take Bryce as well too in a couple years? It could go a lot of different directions with LeBron. Plus, he's just the Space Jam in the movies on the side. The Shop, is he going to be doing episodes of The Shop while in office? Does he just change it to the House and we're just doing episodes of The Shop in the White House? I don't know how he pulls that off. But if we wanted to stick in the NBA world and try to get a guy, is it just time for Adam Silver to take a big promotion and just say, hey, Adam, you've done a great job with the NBA. The media rights deal was a huge success. For the NBA, maybe if we're looking politically the way it was negotiated for the WNBA, maybe there's some stuff for Adam Silver that is not maybe not everybody would get behind, but maybe not Cheryl Miller anyways. But Adam Silver, for the NBA part, has done mostly a good job of getting things in a good spot in America, but also internationally as well too, which I think the international relations could be key. And Adam Silver could be helpful in that. He had his whole thing with Maury that it seemed like, unfortunately they lost that market, but he stood by his guy and seemed like he handled that pretty well, I would say. But for the commissioners, I mean, Adam Silver has to be the obvious choice for any candidate, because otherwise we're going, Goodell, shout out Kathy Engelbert, but I don't know if she's ready for the VP. Manfred as well too. Baseball's just died off, and he's, I don't know if we want Manfred to do for America what he's done for baseball. And Vince McMahon, I think felons can't run as president or vice president as well too. I guess we're not sure if Vince McMahon has a felony. IT, we should fact check that and cut that out if it's not true. But he has the vibe, and so I think Vince McMahon is off the table. But people have been clamoring for Popovich for a while. I know there was talks back in 2016 and maybe even 2020, but definitely 2016, because that would have been, Kawhi on the Spurs at that point. The Spurs were like a 60-win team that season, that the 16-17 season when Kawhi rolled his ankle. The Spurs were awesome that season, and the Warriors as well too were awesome that season, like we were saying. And there was a lot of people clamoring for a Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr ticket. So I don't know if it's time to run that back. I think Popovich is still in pretty good favor with that. I think Popovich could still garner the votes, but her as a running mate at this point, the Team USA thing could be a big boost for him. Like Sam was saying, for some of the players on this past episode, but maybe for Kerr, it's sort of a reminder of the coach that he can be. So maybe he's able to get his name back in from a vice presidential standpoint and get himself back on the ticket. But I think if we want to go a coach, I think Popovich could potentially be a good choice. Belichick with the media has always kind of had a tough relationship, and he's currently out of work right now. So make no mistake, I think Belichick would sign up to take a job. Though there was reports that he did just turn down something from the Niners. So who knows? Maybe this 24-year-old girl's really got Belichick just locked in on living life. But has Andy Reid, he claimed that best coach belt probably before Belichick left, but now he definitely has it. Could he, is he in that Popovich range? Is Andy Reid and Greg Popovich range, where not only do we want him to be the coach, but we want him to be the president as well? Could Andy Reid run the country? I mean, we know that having fast food at the White House is a potentially successful move. So I think Andy Reid could pull that part of it off for, whatever college team pulls up for the national championship. And I guess we don't have a full rundown on what Andy Reid's policies are too. But Mike Tomlin could be a good potential candidate option to consider from the NFL. Oh, also, not a coach, but a guy that runs a team. I guess not right now. Also, maybe currently looking for work. Joe Lacob built the Warriors dynasty. The dramatic pause. Like, hey, yeah, Joe Lacob's kind of like a good choice, isn't he? Like, maybe Joe Lacob actually knows how to fix a couple things, and I think he's probably one season of television with Stephen A. is probably enough for Joe Lacob. Which, speaking of Stephen A., I know he wants to. He's been talking about where do I go next? I don't know if he's just trying to get the whole contract thing with ESPN locked down. But do we just give Stephen A. the JJ Redick and just say, hey, if you want to get into politics, do we just give him the vice president spot right away? First Take was able to help JJ get the Lakers job. So that graphic for Stephen A. would be pretty crazy. Just the what's his experience? Oh yeah, First Take host, Stephen A. podcast, and then vice president of the United States. So I don't know if he's another guy too. Maybe he just wants to try to, he's, irrational, confident guy in a good way, but maybe he thinks he's got a presidency in him as well too. So I don't know. Would he go Shannon Sharp as a running mate? Would Shannon Sharp be the VP on anybody's ticket? Maybe he would do Skip. Maybe him and Skip would work together in Washington, D.C., because make no mistake, Stephen A. said it's not going to happen at ESPN. There's no way him and Skip are getting back together. It is what it is. But maybe we could consider Stephen A. for this vice president spot. Robert Downey Jr. for potential VP next to Harris. A Harris Downey Jr. ticket kind of brings the best of both worlds, I think, in our current political climate, because he does have the experience of playing a businessman like Trump. He played Tony Stark as Iron Man, but he also has experience doing mounds of cocaine like a Biden, like he did back in his day. So I think Downey brings a great amount of experience to the VP job. Dick Van Dyke? Do we just nominate Dick Van Dyke just to stick it to Biden? There was a quote. Van Dyke had a quote. I don't remember. Started to heat up, and it was like, maybe it was like right after that first debate as well too, where it was like, okay, this is maybe really going to become an issue. But he had a quote where he was like, hey, I'm like 100 years old and I still have all my facilities. And it's like, okay, talking about Biden like this. Also, Dick Van Dyke, you've never been to. Are we back? I think our mic cut out. Okay, I think we're good. Anyways, Dick Van Dyke was not the president, so a lot easier than any of the roles that Dick Van Dyke chose, which he always seemed to choose a lot of very happy roles. So I think maybe that contributes to just the graceful aging for Dick Van Dyke. But it's like, oh, let's not say anything right now. Let's just be supportive. But do we go? Oh, what about Charles Barkley? Another guy where TNT, in breaking news, TNT has now swooped in and potentially gets the NBA back, and the inside the NBA crew will return. But if the Charles Barkley TNT relationship has been fractured at this point, the American public needs Charles Barkley, I think. I think Vice President Chuck, just Chuck in a position of power, I think, would be just a good look for a guy, Charles Barkley. Chuck Jong-un, if he gets in, I think a Charles Barkley, Kamala Harris ticket. I flip it around, just Kamala Harris. You have VP experience. Let's just make Chuck the president and move forward that way. We can go Tina Fey. Tina Fey might just be actually just like a good choice as well too. There's just some names in here that are just like good choices, like Taraji P. Henson. Just why haven't we done that right away? Will Smith. Will Smith was maybe on pace to be the president before he slapped Chris Rock, and unfortunately, doesn't seem like. I think the Will Smith approval rating has bounced back, but I don't know if he's flying as high as he was pre-slap as he is now. But Lawrence Fishburne, Vice President Lawrence Fishburne. I did just watch Hoodlums for the first time the other day, which I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I've always, thought Lawrence Fishburne, I don't know if overrated is the right term, but I feel like he was doing a little bit too much in the John Wick movies. And I've always kind of been like, maybe Lawrence Fishburne could have done a little bit better job there. But again, he's so good at Hoodlums, and then such a good dad and Boys to the Hood as well too. If we could just get that guy to be VP, that might be the move. I think anybody from the cast of Boys in the Hood or anybody involved in the making of that movie could probably be a good vice president. Angela Bassett, Cuba Gooding Jr. played Ben Carson in a movie who was a presidential candidate, so I'm sure he could probably do it as well too. Morris Chestnut. Can we just get a Morris Chestnut vice presidency? We might as well at this point. But I think honestly, the move, if we had to recommend one move to the DNC, I think there's only one name that can step up and just save everything. I think there's only one name that people trust at this point. Who do I have faith in as a politician? Who do I want to put my trust in as a person to lead this nation? And again, we're talking who maybe is a helpful VP here, but if if we found the guy, maybe we just found the guy, and Denzel might just be the guy. I don't know why Denzel Washington hasn't just been offered the presidency, because didn't they do this to George Washington back in the day, where the rules were a little bit looser back then, but they were like, hey, do you just want to keep being the president? So I don't know why we can't just do that with Denzel now. We can't just go to him to, whatever secluded cabin he is out in the middle of nowhere. We can't just find him and go, hey, Denzel, we need you, buddy. Can you just step up and be the president of the United States? I think that might be the move. But if you want to make him VP as well, too, then I think lock my vote in for the Denzel Washington, Kamala Harris ticket. I think it's a pretty must win. I mean, like we're saying, who else is just a more trustworthy guy at this point than Denzel Washington? I think that's where I'm at after the the political happenings, after all the stuff that's happened in the political world over the last couple of weeks. I think the only person that I have trust in is Denzel Washington. So, training days, at least it was on Tubi. We'll try to find whatever streaming service it pops on next and track it down there. But, Gladiator 2, I'm sure when we see Denzel as whatever kind of royalty in Gladiator 2, then we might just go ahead and just extend the offer of, maybe it's not even president at that point. Do we just need a full king? Just King Denzel Washington, give him the crown and let him run things. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where the election goes. Like we were saying, I think we know who the players are going to be at this point. Like they're a little uncertainty for Drummond. We'll see if Denzel gets that vice president spot or not. But that's just my number one guy right now for if like we were saying earlier, if we collapse into chaos and we have to just find a new community and try to start from scratch, then I'll just try to pack up a truck and find where Denzel's at and just camp out there for a while. And I'm assuming things will probably just go, we'll figure out how to make things work at that point. And, he's also always just been the one, I mean, off the court as well, too, just the one normal guy in Hollywood. But what were the two big Oscar mess ups? We got the La La Land Moonlight Best Picture fiasco, where Denzel steps up with that. And then the slap earlier, like we were saying with Will Smith, where Denzel is the one that kind of calms Will Smith down and brings the room back to normal. So, I mean, can he just bring America back to normal? Denzel, please save us. The DMC, if you're listening, just go to Denzel and be like, hey, can you take the nomination? Can you just be the face of the party against Trump? Because I think that's and I think the Rem and Sam pod is less on the, the world is going to end if Trump is the president. But I would I vote for Denzel over Trump? Absolutely. 100%. I need the money, Denzel. I need the presidency. I need you as the president. That's not I think we're straying away from the Alonzo quotes, but all that being said, this is where we're at right now. Narrowing it down between Adam Silver and Denzel Washington, but a couple of other names, unfortunately, that could be considered, but just are ineligible because of the current rules, like we were saying with age and everything. Mr. Beast is just, I think he's only like 26. So a couple more years before we can consider Mr. Beast in a leadership role. Paul Skeens, also, I think, still in his 20s. You pull Livy Dunn, you can be my vice president. Make no mistake. Daniel Craig, unfortunately, James Bond does work for the British government. So I don't think he can work for both the American and the British. That'd be a conflict of interest. And if we were going other NBA guys, just, if we could go back into a time machine and just bring back Jerry West, the great NBA player, but the great general manager as well, too, NBA executive, Jerry West. I think that might be the move. There's a lot of talk about Kobe, people wanting to make Kobe the logo. And I think I would be okay with making the Kobe the logo, but only if we promote Jerry West to the American flag. And then at that point, we can do whatever you want. And, make whoever you want the logo. And if it's Kobe, that's perfectly okay with me. But we'll see what happens. I'm not sure exactly when the DNC is. I think August 7th, which is a Wednesday night. So that could be right. But in the upcoming weeks, we'll see who gets the VP nomination. But like we were saying, we did watch the WNBA All-Star game this past weekend as well, too, which turned out to be, a dramatic All-Star game as well, too, more so than just a entertaining one, which it was very entertaining. But the team All-Star team ends up taking down the Olympic team, which kind of exposed, some of people's WNBA knowledge, including my own, because apparently this happened a couple of Olympics ago, and maybe the last 2 Olympics as well too. But I think the one going into Tokyo, they were saying that the All-Star team beat the Team USA team as well too. But there was, of course, we were watching, keeping a close eye on the rookies. I mean, yeah, we're watching Caitlin Clark, and I mean, we're locked on to Angel Reese when she's there, checked in. We're tracking every minute. But the Caitlin Clark thing, we talked about it when she was left off Team USA. It's understandable. The 15-person team, it's been that group has been together for a while as well, too. So it makes sense to keep that group together. But Caitlin Clark, it's not just the level of player that she is, or, the hypothetical level of players that she is, because the shooting hasn't been there necessarily this year like it was when she was, fresh off that college season. But it's not just, we're adding an all-star level player like Caitlin Clark. The type of player that she is, I mean, she's already the best passer in the WNBA. And it's not just that she has the best vision. I mean, she is maybe, and the best floor general is probably a little bit strong in the WNBA right now. Because, again, she is a rookie. And you've got, like, Kelsey Plum on the other side for Team USA. Maybe just, like, the passes that Caitlin Clark is attempting to make, maybe they're just a little bit more difficult. But, Kelsey Plum's ability to command offense is obviously better at this point than Caitlin Clark. But, again, just the playmaking ability is, and, we don't have the WNBA knowledge to throw out the number, but it's right up there, way top in the WNBA. And her vision, I would say her vision, just pure court vision, is the single best in the WNBA right now. And again, even without the shooting, which wasn't necessarily there in the WNBA All-Star game, I mean, she was running that offense, and, I don't think she was, she's not full Luka in these WNBA offenses where it's the heliocentric thing, but she is commanding a big portion of the offense. And, LeBron is a strong comp for that type of thing, but, that kind of point, like a real traditional point guard type thing, but a little more than that, but not quite the heliocentric thing, like somewhere a little bit in the middle. But just really impressive to see her doing that against another all-star team, and to see her with some good players. I mean, the Indiana Fever had several all-stars in the game as well too. So they're a sneaky stack little team there. I know that it's a little bit of the fan vote as well too, but a roster top to bottom where you've got maybe some more shooting as well too. It was like, okay, if she is on that Team USA roster, they could actually use, her basketball thing outside of just her popularity and her name. Like, her point guard skills would actually be super valuable to that team, because you have Kelsey Plum, you have Diana Taurasi as well too. But, Taurasi, I think, is going to have a really great Olympics. And I think Team USA's dominance. It's not like maybe she's going to have to carry in any portion like that. And, with the other players that are on the team as well, too. But there was a moment in the All-Star game where after the game had sort of slipped away a little bit, but it was still kind of right there. And Taurasi came down and hit a couple of threes. And it was like, oh, okay, maybe Taurasi just needed to just be like, screw this. I'm just going to take over and show these kids what's up and, get Team USA back in the game. But I don't think they would need her to do that in the Olympics. But, you might not necessarily would want to rely on your 40-year-old to do that as well, too. But hey, we're going to be doing it on the men's team with LeBron because it seems like he's our best player going into it again this season. But between Taurasi and Plum, you have good floor generals. But, Jackie Young, Jewel Lloyd, there's a little bit more off ball. And I know Jackie Young is definitely taken on some more point guard responsibilities with the injuries that the Aces have had. But, Caitlin Clark could definitely take some of the ball handling responsibilities away from them. And there would have been a role for her on this team, which would have been the other big question as well, too, with her spot on the roster, which is, well, can you have Caitlin Clark on the roster? And what if she's just on the bench the whole time? And what if she doesn't play? But again, you watch her ability as a floor general, and she just would have found a way to be on the court with that vision. But Angel Reese as well, too. Like we're saying, with Caitlin Clark, the shooting hasn't been there from a percentage standpoint to start her career. And, rookie season, the adjustment period, totally understandable. That's not something that we're going to start, really being like, hey, what's going on here until, we'll give her the time to adjust, make no mistake. But if we're just looking at the impact that is being contributed with the style of player that she is right now, where the shooting is a little erratic and the defense is also not necessarily there. I don't think it's fair to, I don't think it's a stretch to say that she's not a stopper on defense. I think she, could be a good defender. There's a world and definitely a timeline where she's a good defender, but from a box score standpoint and just the eye test as well, too, definitely could see a little bit more from that end. So just, she's kind of contributing in these couple of phases right now, but doing it at a really, really high level. Well, Angel Reese is kind of doing the same thing. And again, projections long-term, whoever you think is going to be the best player in the class, like Caitlin Clark was the number one. And it was obvious, we're not doing a rehashing of that in any way whatsoever. And I'm not even saying that, I don't think that Caitlin Clark is still not going to be the best player of that class. But again, from an impact standpoint, Angel Reese is kind of equal impact to Caitlin Clark right now. And again, Caitlin Clark's responsibility as a point guard, maybe she's in control of some more things on offense, but the impact, with Angel Reese's rebounding is insane. But the defense that she was playing on Asia Wilson was like, oh, okay. She is also, as an interior defender, one of the better interior defenders in the WNBA right now as well, too. And, foul trouble. She's a younger player. She'll have to learn and polish up her game in those areas as well, too. But the defender, rebounder, interior presence that Angel Reese is, and the playmaker, floor general point guard that Caitlin Clark is, like, they're both equal impact. I think, and I'm not trying to bring somebody down and, do the whole thing. I'm just saying that Angel Reese is on pace right now as the best player in this class. And I don't think it's a hot take, but I think the bigger picture is what I'm trying to get to is, if the shooting stays like this for Caitlin Clark, then maybe we are going to get to a situation someday where, we're doing a redraft thing. And I'm not saying I'm not betting on the shooting by any means. I'm just, again, trying to give props where props are due. And I think this draft class, we knew it was going to be a historic one to monitor, but for some reason, the WNBA impact thing for Angel Reese just didn't translate. And, I totally understood. Oh, yeah, Cameron Brink, second. Totally understandable with the two-way thing, the defense. Even Cardosa at 4 with, or 3 or 4, wherever you had her on your board, the South Carolina run. It's like, okay, I get if you want to take her over Angel Reese. But after that, it was to me was like, I don't know, and the translation of the WNBA game to the NBA game, what skills translate, I think is a little bit different as well too, where I'm not saying that the type of player that Angel Reese is wouldn't translate to the NBA. I'm just saying you watch guys in college basketball, and sometimes dominant college basketball players have an eye test thing where you go, that wouldn't work in the WM or in the NBA. And for some reason, there was a couple other players where it was just like the Angel Reese thing wasn't, attractive, wasn't as attractive, no pun intended, to the other WNBA GMs and the other rookies that were taken in front of her as well too. I think Aaliyah Edwards, JC Selden. I don't remember who the other ones were if I left somebody out, but they've all shown moments and performed really well too. But I mean, Angel Reese is an all-star and really has a chance to be, an all WNBA level player. I don't think that's really a hot take. So I think both of them, just watching both of them and being like, oh yeah, they would have probably have had roles and gotten minutes. Maybe Angel Reese a little bit tougher just because you've got, Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson both on the front court for that Team USA thing. Like even Jonquel Jones wasn't on Team USA, but neither was Arike Gumbawale for the guards as well too. And she definitely proved her point in the All-Star game with her performance as well too, which I think she scored all of her points in the second half, which was just insane. Just on 30 some points in the second half is one of the higher scoring all-star halves that I've seen, just period. I know we've seen some really insane, total NBA performances over the last couple of years, but there's also, Mitchell and Davis and Westbrook have had all like 50 plus point performances in the all-star game. But again, just the individual half, she put up, I think, like 32 was one of the better heat check halves of basketball. And I'm not saying that she's a heat check player. She's obviously a stud, but I mean, she was on fire that night. So one of the better heat check performances that I've definitely ever seen. So super fun. Like we said, we can't wait for the the WNBA to get back going and get watching those games again. We can't wait for the Olympics this weekend. I guess we'll be live watching the Olympic ceremonies with our guy Sam. So follow the feeds for that. We're going to be at Rem and Sam or at Rem and Sam podcast on any social platforms. And we're doing all kinds of new stuff right now. We're trying some new things. So like I said, go follow the platforms. We've got some playlists out there on Spotify as well too. So I think there's some links for that on, YouTube and Instagram in the various places as well too. So make no mistake, some exciting things are happening on the Rem and Sam podcast. There's always exciting things happening, but we are always trying to make sure that there's always extra exciting things as well too. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for this weekend when me and Sam are back and the Rem and Sam podcast is at its peak. But I think that should do it for this episode. So like we said, follow the feeds at Rem and Sam, at Rem and Sam podcast. And thank you guys for listening and have a good night.